Welcome back to the deep dive. It is Sunday, January 25th, 2026. And I have to say, looking at the news this morning, looking at the markets, looking at the receipt from the grocery store, does anyone else feel like the ground is just shifting?
Shifting. I think
Yeah.
that's putting it mildly. It feels like we're standing on a fault line.
Right. It's palpable. You look at your portfolio, you look at the cost of living, and you realize that the financial rules we grew up with, the career paths we were told were safe, even the way we get our electricity, it's all being rewritten. We are living through a massive realignment.
It really is a structural break. The
Yeah.
models from the 2010s, the ones that everyone based their retirement plans on, they just don't apply to the reality of 2026.
Exactly. And today we're on a mission. We have this massive stack of research here, reports from FODMA Everyday, technical breakdowns from Tickerina and Tom's Hardware, financial analysis from TradingView and RCR Wireless, and we are going to unpack a really specific and honestly a pretty surprising intersection of these trends.
It is weird. If you told me 5 years ago we'd be talking about this exact connection, I wouldn't have believed you. It would have sounded like science fiction.
We're looking at how the silver economy, specifically the needs and the massive economic influence of U.S. seniors, is the actual engine driving the most futuristic tech trends we're seeing right now. We're talking about why SpaceX is launching servers into orbit. We're talking about why Tesla is pivoting its entire existence to robotics.
It sounds totally counterintuitive.
Yeah.
I mean, usually when you think future tech, you picture a 20-something coder in a hoodie in San Francisco or Austin. You don't think of grandma and grandpa in a retirement community in Florida.
No, you definitely don't. But the sources we have today are, well, they're practically screaming this at us. If you want to understand the next 10 years of the economy, and specifically where the investment returns are going to come from, you have to look at the senior demographic. They are the ones holding the keys.
They have the capital, they have the political weight, and most importantly, they have the need. It's not just about selling them golf clubs or river cruises anymore. It's about survival, dignity, and legacy.
So to guide us through this, because there is a lot here, we've pulled out some keywords. If you're a learner, if you're listening to this, to figure out where to put your money or just how to plan your life in this crazy year of 2026, keep these keywords in your head. They're the lens through which we're going to view everything today.
Okay, let's hear them.
Stability, safety, legacy, and this big one, made in North America.
Those are the pillars. In a volatile world, those are the things people, especially seniors, are willing to pay a premium for. And frankly, they're what every investor should be looking for right now. Dependability.
So let's jump right in. We need to start with the big picture, the context of where we are sitting right now in January 2026. We have a report from FODM App Everyday titled 11 Economic Predictions for the Rest of the Decade. Walk me through the silver economy boom.
Context is everything here. The baby boomers are now squarely in their senior years. We've known this demographic shift was coming for decades, ever since the end of World War II, really. But now it's here. It is physically happening. This generation holds the vast majority of real disposable income in the United States.
But their spending habits have changed, right? It's not the same as it was 10 or 15 years ago.
Drastically. A decade ago, the marketing pitch to this demographic was buy this luxury car, take this trip to Europe, buy a second home, aspirational discretionary spending. Now, as they age, the priority shifts. It becomes, who is going to take care of me? How do I stay in my home? How do I make sure my savings last? The spending isn't discretionary anymore. It's driven by necessity.
That makes sense. But FODM App Everyday flags a massive problem with that necessity. They call it the healthcare labor shortage.
That is the crisis point. And crisis isn't a strong enough word. It's a demographic time bomb that's now going off. We're facing a retirement cliff in the medical field itself. You have the largest generation of patients in history entering the system, requiring more care than ever before. And at the same time, the doctors and nurses from that same generation are retiring in droves.
So you have demand skyrocketing and supply cratering at the exact same moment.
Precisely. FODMAP is very clear on this. The demand for care is outpacing the supply of new graduates by a wide margin.
Yeah.
You can't just print more nurses. It takes years to train them to get them certified. It's not a switch you can just flip.
I was reading that section and it really struck me. It's not just a statistic on a page. It's families stressed out because they can't find home health aides. It's waiting lists for nursing homes that are years long. It's adult children having to quit their jobs to care for their parents. If we have more seniors needing care and fewer humans to provide it, I mean, what happens? What's the end game there?
Well, in a traditional economic model, prices would just skyrocket until only the ultra-wealthy could afford care. But that's not a viable societal outcome. That leads to collapse, to a breakdown of the social contract. So when humans can't fill the gap, technology has to step in. There's no other choice.
And this is where we pivot to the hard tech. We have a report from FinTech Weekly covering Elon Musk's appearance at Davos just a few days ago. He made a prediction that made a lot of headlines, but I want to dig into the why behind it. He said robots will eventually outnumber humans.
Right. And people focus on the Terminator aspect of that, the sci-fi fear. But you have to look at the context of the question he was answering. He wasn't talking about war. He was talking about labor, specifically elder care.
So the robot isn't coming to take your job at the marketing agency. It's coming to help your grandmother out of a chair.
That is the wedge. That's the entry point for mass adoption. It's not a luxury. It's a solution to an urgent society-wide problem. The silver economy is the market force that makes robotics viable on a massive scale. But, and this is a huge but, you cannot just throw a factory robot into a nursing home.
No, please don't. I'm just picturing that. I definitely do not want a robot arm that's designed to weld car parts trying to help me with my medication.
Precisely. And this is where that keyword safety comes in. We have a fascinating article from Tech Arena by Niv Sundaram. He proposes something he calls the grandmother test.
I loved this concept. It's such a simple way to frame a really complex engineering problem. Can you break it down for the listeners?
It's simple. The engineering question usually is, can this robot lift 50 pounds?
We know machines are strong. Hydraulics and actuators are powerful. That's the easy part, relatively speaking. The real question, the one that determines if this company makes $1 trillion or goes bust, is, will my grandmother trust this robot?
That's a psychological hurdle, not just a mechanical one. It's about perception. It's entirely psychological. Syndrome writes, we need less Ultron and more vision.
I appreciate the Marvel reference. It makes it very clear.
It works perfectly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Ultron is cold, terrifying efficiency. It's metal and logic, and it's scary. Vision is empathetic. He understands human fragility. He moves with grace. He's reassuring.
So if a robot moves too fast or its movements are too jerky and mechanical, it triggers a lizard brain fear response in a human. We're just not wired for it.
Exactly. If a machine moves faster than your grandma can track visually, she's going to feel unsafe. She's going to panic. She's going to reject it. So the success metric for 2026 isn't how fast can it work. It is, does it make the human feel safe enough to unlock a fuller life?
Unlocking a fuller life, that's an interesting way to frame it, because usually we think of elder care as just keeping someone alive, maintenance mode.
That's a low bar, isn't it? We're talking about legacy here. Seniors want to maintain independence. They want to go to community events. They want to work on their hobbies. They don't want to be a burden on their children. If a robot can handle the drudgery, the cleaning, the laundry, the heavy lifting, the things that become dangerous as you age, it frees up the human to actually live, to engage.
It frees up the senior, but it also frees up the human caregiver, doesn't it?
That's the other side of the equation, and it's just as important. If you're a nurse, or even a daughter or son taking care of a parent, you have to physically lift them out of bed multiple times a day, your back is destroyed. You are exhausted physically and emotionally. If the robot does the lifting, you can actually sit down and hold their hand. You can have a conversation.
Right.
You can hear their stories. You can provide the emotional support that a machine, frankly, never will.
So the technology, paradoxically, allows for more humanity, not less.
That is the optimistic view, yes. It reframes the robot from a replacement for humans to a tool for human dignity. And for the investor, that's the selling point. It's not a gadget, it's an infrastructure for dignity.
Okay, that's the why. That's the demand side of the equation. Now I want to get into the what. Because we've been hearing about robots for 50 years. Why is 2026 different? We have a deep dive review here from Brian D. Colwell on Tesla's Optimus Gen 3.
The Gen 3, this is where things get serious.
Yeah.
This isn't the guy in a spandex suit dancing on stage anymore. This is real hardware with real specs.
I was looking at the specs in this review, and honestly, the hands freaked me out a little bit. In a good way, I think. They look almost too real.
The hands are the holy grail of robotics.
Yeah.
The human hand is an evolutionary masterpiece.
The report says they have 11 degrees of freedom per hand. For the non-engineers listening, I mean, is that a lot?
It's incredibly complex. Think about your own hand for a second. Look at it. It's a marvel of biology. You can thread a needle with it, but you can also crush a soda can. You can play the piano, or you can swing a hammer. Replicating that versatility, that combination of extreme delicacy of brute force with motors and cables, is an engineering nightmare. 11 degrees of freedom means it can mimic the vast majority of human grips.
The review mentioned it can handle an egg without breaking it. That's the classic test, right?
That is the delicacy test. It's a demonstration of fine motor control. You need tactile feedback sensors that can feel the shell of the egg and know exactly how much pressure to apply down to the gram.
But the actuators are also strong enough to exert 500 kilograms of force.
So it can hold an egg or it can lift the end of a piano.
That dynamic range is wild. I can't even get my head around that.
It's essential. If you're helping a senior stand up from a deep chair, you need power. You need torque. If you're helping them button a shirt because their arthritis is acting up, you need extreme finesse. If the robot only has power, it crushes the person. If it only has finesse, it can't help them move. You need both, seamlessly integrated.
And it's walking at 10 to 12 kilometers per hour now? That's a jog. That's faster than I jog.
That's a brisk jog. And that matters. Not because grandma needs to go for a jog, but because the robot needs to keep up with the flow of a city. If you have a robot moving at 1 mile per hour on a sidewalk, it's an obstacle. It's a hazard. At 10 kilometers per hour, it flows with human traffic. It integrates. It can get out of the way, becomes part of the environment, not a roadblock.
The battery life is up 40% too, so it's an all-day machine now. But the thing that stopped me in my tracks was the price. The target is $20,000 to $30,000.
That number is critical. That is the make-or-break number for this entire vision.
That's less than a Toyota Camry. That's less than most used cars right now.
It has to be. If this is going to solve the labor crisis, it cannot be a luxury item for the top 1%. It has to be accessible to the middle class. Think about the cost of a home health aid we talked about earlier.
It's astronomical. You're talking $25, $30 an hour, in some places more, for 247 care. That's 6 figures a year easily. It drains a family's savings in no time.
Exactly. It destroys the legacy money that people have worked their whole lives to build. So if you can buy a robot for a one-time cost of, say, $25,000 and maybe a small subscription for the software updates, the return on investment is immediate. You pay it off in 3 or 4 months compared to human labor. The economics are undeniable.
This brings us to the investment angle. We have sources from Financial Content and Zaya talking about Tesla's transformation. And they're making a really bold claim. They're saying Tesla isn't a car company anymore. It's a robotics firm.
And that pivot was painful. Do you remember 2024? The headlines?
Oh, yeah. I remember the headlines. The massive layoffs, the stock taking a beating, everyone saying Musk had lost the plot, that he was distracted.
It was grueling. They abandoned the Model 2,
Yeah.
the cheap $25,000 car everyone was waiting for, to bet the entire farm on this autonomy and robotics vision. They took a huge amount of short-term pain.
Why take that risk? Cars were working. Selling cars is a good business, a profitable one.
Is it? Look at the market now. Chinese EVs are flooding every market on the planet. Margins are compressing. It's a race to the bottom on price. It's becoming a commodity business. Musk looked at that and said, I don't want to play a low-margin commodity game. I want to play a monopoly game.
And labor is the monopoly.
Labor is the ultimate constraint on the entire economy. If you solve labor, you win the economy. Everything else is secondary.
So if I'm an investor, if I'm a learner listening to this and trying to apply that stability lens,
Yeah.
how do I measure this? Because they haven't sold these robots in mass numbers yet. I can't look at a quarterly report and see robots sold.
No, you're right. You can't. You have to look at the leading indicators. You have to look at the engineering metrics, the things that come before the sales. The metric to watch is mean miles between interventions.
For the cybercab. Or for the robot.
For both. It's the same brain, basically. How long can this machine operate in the real world before it gets confused and a human has to jump in to save it?
So it's a measure of autonomy, a measure of reliability.
It's a measure of trust. If it needs help every 10 minutes, it's a toy. If it needs help every 10,000 miles, it's a product. And then you watch the unit economics. Can they actually build it for $20,000? Or does it cost $100,000 to make? That's the question for 2026.
And then there's the government, the regulatory side of things. TradingView notes that Tesla is anticipating EU full self-driving approval by 2026.
That is the regulatory gate. The technology is essentially ready. The politics and the bureaucracy are the bottleneck. If the EU says yes, that validates the safety data on a massive scale. It opens the floodgates for the cars, and by extension for the robots that use the same vision system.
That connects back to our Made in North America keyword too. We're seeing this trend of onshoring supply chains, of bringing manufacturing back. FODMP every day mentioned that dependability is replacing lowest cost.
Think about it from a senior's perspective. If you're relying on a robot to keep your mother alive, Do you want the spare parts and the software support coming from a country you might be in a trade war with next week?
No, absolutely not. You want the factory in Texas or Nevada. You want to know that supply chain is secure and not subject to geopolitical whims.
You want security, short supply chains. That is a massive shift from the globalization of the 2000s, where we just chased the cheapest part no matter where it was. Now we're chasing the most reliable part.
Okay, so we have the body, the optimist. We have the need, the silver economy. But a robot is just a fancy statue without a brain. We need to talk about compute.
The silicon. This is the engine room of the whole operation.
We have info here from Tom's Hardware and Global China EV about Tesla's new chip, the AI-5.
AI-5, it sounds like a boy band, doesn't it?
It really does. Coming to the stage, AI-5. But this is entering production in the second half of this year, 2026.
And the performance jump is staggering. We're not talking about a 20 or 30% improvement. We're talking 10x the compute of hardware 4.
10 times. That is not an incremental update. That is a generational leap.
It is. And Musk is moving to a 9-month release cadence for these chips. That's faster than NVIDIA. That's faster than AMD. He's accelerating Moore's Law. But here is the detail that matters for our safety theme, the one that the seniors and their families care about. These are automotive-grade chips.
I saw that term in the source. Can you explain that distinction? Because my laptop has a fast chip. My phone has a fast chip. Why is automotive grade different and more important here?
It comes down to a standard called ISO 26262.
ISO 26262. Okay, let's unpack this. Sounds important.
Imagine you're playing a video game on your computer. You're fighting a boss, and suddenly the screen freezes. The game crashes. What happens?
I scream, I lose my progress, I get annoyed, I reboot, but at the end of the day, it's just a game.
Right. Low stakes. Now imagine that computer is driving a car at 70 miles per hour, or it's a robot holding a sharp knife in a kitchen next to a toddler. If that computer crashes.
People get hurt, people die, the stakes are infinitely higher.
Exactly. ISO 26262 is a rigorous set of standards for functional safety. It means the chip is designed with redundancies, with fail-safes. It means if one part of the brain fails, another part catches it instantly. It fails safely. It doesn't just shut down.
So the chips running ChatGPT in a server room in Virginia, those don't need to be automotive grade.
No. If ChatGPT crashes, you just refresh the page. Speed is all that matters there. For robotics interacting with the real world, reliability is the product. It's the most important feature.
And that's Tesla's moat, their secret sauce.
That is the moat. NVIDIA makes incredible chips for training AI in a climate-controlled server room. They are the best in the world at that. But putting a supercomputer into a moving object that interacts with the physical world, rain, heat, vibration, children running in front of it, that requires a totally different kind of silicon architecture.
So if I'm trusting this thing with my legacy, with my safety, I need to know it is not going to blue screen of death while it's carrying me down the stairs.
Precisely. That is the stability keyword again. It's not about having the smartest robot. It's about having the most reliable one. The one that will never, ever fail in a dangerous way.
But here is the problem, and this is where the story takes a turn that I really didn't see coming. All of this, the robots, the AI training, it requires massive, unbelievable amounts of power.
Energy is the hard ceiling on AI. It's the great bottleneck.
FODMAP every day, and the SEA, the Solar Energy Industries Association, they paint a pretty stark picture. We're hitting the limits of the U.S. power grid.
We are. AI data centers are energy vampires. They suck up gigawatts of power. And our grid is old. It's creaky. It was built for a different era. We simply cannot build new power plants and transmission lines fast enough to keep up with the demand from the AI companies.
And there was that policy shift, right? The One Big Beautiful Bill Act.
The OBBBA.
Yes.
Passed in July 2025.
Who names these things? Seriously.
I know. Politicians with a flair for the dramatic, clearly. But the impact was real. It cut short some of the renewable energy tax credits. And getting land for solar farms on Earth is slow. The source from Innovatus Solar says permitting takes 2 years on average. 2 years before you can even break ground. The AI industry doesn't have 2 years to wait.
So we have a bottleneck, a massive one. We have the robots, we have the chips, but we don't have the juice to run the brains. And Elon Musk's solution is space.
This is my favorite part of the Deep Dive. It sounds like pure science fiction, but it is happening right now as we speak.
We have sources from Introl Blog, Trading Key, and RCR Wireless about a milestone that happened just 2 weeks ago, January 11, 2026.
The launch of Axiom Space's orbital data center nodes.
Orbital data centers. Servers in space. My first reaction is, why? Just to be cool? Or is there a solid economic reason for this?
It's pure physics and economics. Think about solar power on Earth.
Okay. It works when the sun is out. It doesn't work at night.
Right. So it works maybe half the time on a good day.
Yeah.
And then you have clouds. You have dust. You have winter when the sun is low in the sky. The atmosphere itself blocks a lot of the energy before it even reaches the panel. Now, go to orbit.
No clouds, no night, if you're in the right orbit.
Exactly. If you're in a sun-synchronous orbit, it is noon all the time. You have 247 unfiltered high-intensity solar power. It is, for all practical purposes, unlimited energy.
And what about the cooling? Because I know data centers on Earth spend a fortune on air conditioning. They're basically giant refrigerators.
Space is cold, very cold. You don't need AC. You just need radiators to dump the heat from the servers into the void. So your two biggest operating costs for a data center on Earth power and cooling drop to near zero.
The data, how do you get the data down? Latency must be an issue. You can't run a fiber optic cable to the International Space Station.
Lasers.
Of course. It's always space lasers.
It sounds like a joke, but it's actually standard tech now. Optical intersatellite links. They beam the results of the computation from the server node to the Starlink V3 network, and then that network beams it down to a ground station anywhere on Earth.
We found a Reddit thread from SpaceX Lounge where Musk tweeted about this. He said, and I'm quoting here, "Satellites with localized AI compute will be the lowest cost way to generate AI bit streams in less than 3 years."
AI bit streams. Pause on that phrase for a second. That is a fascinating way to look at it.
It sounds like cyberpunk jargon from a William Gibson novel.
It treats intelligence as a commodity, like oil or gold. Instead of mining gold from the ground, we are mining intelligence in orbit and beaming it down to Earth as a raw material.
He's aiming for 100 gigawatts of AI compute added per year.
With no operating costs for power. That's the part that breaks the entire model of terrestrial data centers.
That's the abundance unlock. It's a fundamental change in the cost structure.
It is. If you remove the cost of energy from the equation, the cost of intelligence drops to near zero. And if the cost of intelligence drops to zero and you have robots that run on that intelligence,
Then the cost of labor drops to near zero.
it's a closed loop, a self-reinforcing machine that gets cheaper and more powerful with every launch.
And that brings us to the financial event that everyone is whispering about. The rumors are spinning up about SpaceX.
The IPO, the big one.
RCR Wireless and Satellite Today are reporting that SpaceX is targeting a $1.5 trillion valuation in a potential 2026 IPO.
Just to put that number in perspective for you, that would be bigger than the IPOs of Amazon, Apple, Microsoft, and NVIDIA combined, adjusted for inflation, depending on how you cut the data. It is a colossal market-defining event.
But why now? Musk famously hates public markets. He hated being public with Tesla. He complained about the quarterly calls constantly. Why go through that again?
It's a strategic pivot. Tesla has headwinds, right? The car market is tough, competitive. But SpaceX, it has a functional monopoly on critical global infrastructure. Starlink is becoming a global utility.
It's the new internet backbone, the new phone lines.
It is. And if you want to fund the really crazy stuff, the city on Mars or these massive orbital server farms, you need trillions, not billions. The IPO capitalizes on Starlink's dominance to fund the next, much bigger phase of the vision.
It shifts the center of gravity. It feels like Musk's public universe is moving from Tesla to SpaceX.
And you can see it in the investor sentiment that the sources talk about. It says even people who dislike Musk, people who hate his politics or his tweets, they hold their nose and prepare to buy into a SpaceX IPO.
Because there is no alternative. There's no Starlink competitor on the horizon.
Exactly. It's the stability keyword again. In a volatile world, you invest in the utility that everyone needs. If the terrestrial internet goes down or is censored by a government or is just slow, Starlink is the backup. It is the ultimate hedge.
So let's try to tie this all together, because we have covered a lot of ground. We have the silver economy needing labor. We have Tesla pivoting to robots to provide that labor. We have SpaceX going to orbit to provide the power and compute for those robots.
It's a machine. Phoenix News and Strategic Analysis 2026-2035 describe this synergy perfectly. Tesla provides the labor with Optimus and the terrestrial energy storage with its batteries. SpaceX provides the transport with Starship and the connectivity with Starlink. And xAI provides the intelligence, the brains of the operation.
It's a vertical integration of the entire new economy, a closed-loop system.
And the result, the theoretical end state of all this, is this concept of sustainable abundance.
We found a Reddit thread from Farpostea Humanity discussing this exact topic, and it gets philosophical fast. If the marginal cost of energy and labor collapses to near zero, what happens to money? What happens to society?
They talk about universal high income, UHI.
Not basic income, high income. That's a big difference.
The distinction is important. Universal basic income is sort of Here's enough money not to starve. It's a safety net. Universal high income is the idea that the value creation from these automated systems is so massive that we can support a high standard of living for everyone.
It sounds utopian. It sounds like Star Trek.
It is utopian, which is why we have to balance that with the cold water of reality. We have a financial reality check from OFODMAP every day.
The national debt.
The wet blanket on our utopian fire.
Numbers are just staggering. The U.S. spends $2.6 billion per day just servicing its debt. Not paying it off, just paying the interest.
That is a terrifying number. A hole that gets deeper every single second. It is by definition unsustainable.
So how does the robot utopia fix that? How do those two things connect?
The argument from the techno-optimist side, Musk's side, is that politicians cannot solve this. You can't tax your way out of that much debt. You can't cut spending enough without causing a revolution. The numbers are just too big.
So the only way out is growth. You have to outrun the debt.
Radical growth. You have to create a productivity boom so massive, driven by AI and robots, that your GDP grows faster than your debt compounds. You have to inflate the economy with real value to make the debt look small in comparison.
So the robot revolution isn't just about getting someone to fold your laundry. It's about saving the national balance sheet.
In theory, yes. It connects back to legacy. If we want to leave a world to our grandchildren that isn't crushed by debt, the argument goes that we might need these robots to work 2047 to pay it off for us.
This also changes how we live, right? The physical structure of our society. Architizer Journal had a piece on post-work society architecture.
This was fascinating to me. If work becomes optional, Keynes predicted a 3-hour workday back in the 1930s. He was just a century early. Our cities change physically.
We stop building giant glass office towers.
Why do you need them? If people aren't commuting to a cubicle 5 days a week, that real estate becomes obsolete. We start building community hubs instead. Maker spaces. They mention libraries of things.
I love the idea of a library of things. Can you explain that?
Well, instead of everyone on the blog owning a cheap power drill that they use once a year, the community owns a set of high-quality, professional-grade tools. You check one out. You use it. You bring it back. It's more efficient, less wasteful, and it builds community.
It fits the senior learner profile perfectly. It's about community engagement, about sharing resources, about stability.
It's moving from a society optimized for production. Get to the office, sit at the desk, make the widget to one optimized for living and well-being, focusing on things like circadian rhythms instead of the 9-to-5 grind.
Which brings us full circle to the silver economy, because in a way, retirees are already living in a post-work society.
Exactly. They are the pioneers. They are showing us what life looks like when your identity isn't defined by your job title. They value connection, health, stability. And this technology, robots, space internet, AI, is ultimately being built to support that lifestyle for everyone. The needs of seniors are just paving the way.
So, for the learner listening today, we have covered robots, space lasers, national debt, and community tool sheds. What is the takeaway? If I am looking at this through that lens of stability and legacy, what do I do with all this information?
The takeaway is that the volatility we are seeing in 2026, the market swings, the political noise, it's the birthing pain of this new era. It feels chaotic, but the underlying trend lines are becoming very, very clear.
Where's the smart money going? What's the new thesis?
Investment is shifting from growth stocks, the software and social media companies of the 2010s, to what you could call infrastructure of abundance.
Infrastructure of abundance. Give me the list. What does that category include?
Robotics, space, AI compute, and energy. Those are the new utilities. They are the fundamental building blocks of the next economy. But the key word from FOD and MAP for any investor right now is patience.
Patience. That is hard for modern investors who are used to instant gratification.
I know. The housing market is settling. This robot revolution is hardware intensive. It's made of atoms, not just bits. It takes time. You have to build the factories. You have to pass the safety checks. ISO 26262 doesn't happen overnight.
So don't expect an optimist in your kitchen tomorrow morning making you breakfast.
No. But watch the metrics. Watch the interventions per mile. Watch the regulatory approvals in the EU and China. Financial Content called it a binary outcome.
Meaning it either works on a massive scale or it doesn't work at all.
It's a high-wire act. It's incredibly ambitious. But if they solve the physics of labor and energy, it changes everything.
It's no longer about selling cars. It's about solving the fundamental constraints of the entire global economy.
Exactly. The stakes are that high.
I want to leave the listeners with a final thought we picked up from Architizer and Tech Arena, a more philosophical question.
Go for it.
If the robots really do take the drudgery, if they fold the laundry and scrub the floors and do the data entry, and the space stations provide unlimited clean power,
Hmm.
what will you do with your time?
It is the ultimate question, isn't it? What is the purpose of a human in a world of abundance?
Will we just be idle spectators? Will we just sit around consuming media all day? Or will we see a renaissance of human connection and craft and exploration?
The silver economy isn't just about aging. It might be the model for the rest of us. They're the first generation on a mass scale to navigate a life defined by living rather than working.
That is a powerful thought to chew on. I think I am going to go work on my hobbies after this.
I might go check on my grandmother, make sure she's doing okay.
There you go. Thank you for listening to this deep dive. As always, check your sources, stay curious, and keep learning. We'll see you in the next one.
Goodbye, everyone.
See you next time.